So let me say this right, and I'm going to just get right into a particular moment in time in the situation. So in the book, I kind of detail my experience when, talking about the criminal justice system, meaning that I had came across information. Like being in prison, you come across a lot of information. A lot of it's not relevant. Like I can say this right now about law libraries in prison. The prison law library is ineffective, period. It's just ineffective, and that's a whole nother conversation. But you do come across information in prison that sounds like it's effective. So you might find yourself in a holding tank or a hallway in a courthouse, experiencing some things. And sometimes you have moments where you say, this is what that information is in real time. So in the book, I'm talking about, at this particular moment in the book, I'm talking about an attorney representing a person, right? So there's a lot of incidents where if you're incarcerated or detained, there will be hearings held, but you won't be present. Your attorney will be present, but you won't be present. So you in a county prison, you will be anticipating going to all hearings because you want to go home. You want to get released. So you want to be there because it's a possibility that your attorney can present some type of argument that can get you out. But most times you just receive a letter in the mail that says your criminal action, the matter has been continued. You weren't even there. So that's where I'm at in the book, and presenting a few incidents in a row to line up an actual experience that I had with the defendant's attorney. So I was burnt out. I was getting high, and I just had enough. I was in over my head with the criminal justice system. So I just ran. I went from Westchester back to Coatesville, right? And I'm in Coatesville, and I'm just running around, basically hiding out at my girlfriend's house, right? And a friend of mine comes to Coatesville looking for me because she is invested in me, just being responsible with this criminal action. Like, you got to show up, and whatever the case may be. So I'm saying duress. I'm not saying in a legal sense, just under duress, under protest. I really didn't want to go, right? Because I'm like, he represents me. I don't have to go to trial today. I don't have a trial date. Even though the paperwork says that the trial date is set for on the notice, today, that date is not trial because I have not picked a jury. So trial doesn't begin until you pick a jury. So the notice can say whatever it wants to say. And that's how dockets are lined up. They always say the trial date is set for. And they give you the courtroom number and the judge and all of that on the notice. But I know that me going over to Westchester right now, I'm not going to trial today because I didn't pick a jury. But anyway, I tried not to go, and she shows up, basically gets me out of bed from my girlfriend's bed, and I drive back to Westchester with her. End up in a hallway, on the third floor of the courthouse. I believe it's the third floor of the courthouse. And I encounter my lawyer. Well, the defendant's lawyer. Anyway, I don't want to confuse you by saying that. I encountered my lawyer, right? And I said, yo, why do I gotta be here? And he's like, you have to be here. And this is dealing with, if you understand law, if you understand contract, there's a term called surety. And a surety is someone who takes on the obligation of another without compensation. That's basically what it means in a nutshell. So he's like, you have to be here. I'm like, if I have to be here, why doesn't the victim have to be here at I gotta keep coming to all these, you keep saying I gotta show up to these hearings. I gotta show up to these hearings. So why isn't the same put on the victim? Why don't he have to show up at every hearing? So while I'm going back and forth with this conversation, right, mind you, I'm asking why I got to be there. He's saying I have to be here at this hearing. I notice it's a woman in the background, dressed. She was dressed very nice. She looked very nice. Her shoes was amazing, if I can say that, right? Her shoes was amazing. So it caught my attention. I looked, I said, oh, it's a nice dressed woman, like right off over his shoulder in the background. So I'm like, who is that? But I could see she's paying attention to our conversation. Mind you, I already filed a motion to dismiss that is most likely perceived as anti-government, even though I'm not saying anything in there about the United States of America. I'm not saying anything in there about the Chester County local government. I'm not saying anything in there about that. What I presented in the motion to dismiss was that statutes are not laws, right? And when you're talking about subject matter jurisdiction, my argument was for the judge to prove or present that they have jurisdiction over the matter. That's all I was saying about that particular motion. But being as though Nathan Shanker already tilted his hand and showed his hand and told my friend Miss Romanowski that the Coatesville Police Department deems me as anti-government. And that's due to me screaming in the middle of the night that I'm a taxpayer. They're public servants, and they're whatever the case may be. And then furthering that by spending the rest of the night in a holding cell in the Chester County, the Coatesville Police Department, screaming and ranting how I do not consent to the affidavit of probable cause being filed against me. All that comes out, I guess, as anti-government. Mind you, I was shooting from the hip the whole time on little information that I came across. But back to the incident in the courthouse. So I'm watching her watch us have this conversation. So I could see she makes this sound or this noise. I don't know if she tapped her foot or something, but it gets his attention and they both walk in the courtroom. I'm still standing in the hallway with my friend, Miss Romanowski. So I'm sitting out there, I'm having a quiet conversation with her pertaining to, did she just see what happened? Because I'm like, are you watching this as a taxpayer? Right? It's kind of difficult because you're here with me. They really can't do what they want to do with me. They really want to put me in handcuffs and put me downstairs. They really want to find a way to revoke my bail, like right here. They could say like, oh, you were late. The judge deemed that you're late, so you missed this hearing. So that's failure to appear. Like they do all that type of freaky stuff in the courtroom when you just by yourself, right? But because I had a taxpayer with me, Miss Romanowski, I'm just saying that so you can understand. They really looking like, oh, he got a regular person with it. We can't really, freak off on him out here. So I'm like, did you see how I asked him, why do I have to be here when the victim don't have to be here? That don't make sense. If I have to be here and I victimize somebody in Westchester, why don't they have to show up? They're not ever compelled to show up, but I am always being compelled to show up, so to speak, right? So she's like, yeah, I see that. Like, I don't see nobody here but you. I'm like, right. That don't even make sense. There's a whole lot of moving parts to this. The police officer is not here. The arresting officer is not here. There's nobody here that is involved in this case but me. And then there's the person who represents the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which is the district attorney, who's here, right? And just being more blunt with it, they represent the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania cannot possibly be here, right? So I'm the only actual person here. There's no other physical person here that's involved in this case. So she was like, yeah. So anyway, our conversation probably lasted about 20 minutes. And then he comes back out the courtroom and he says to me, I just got the matter continued because the lab results on a possession case, on a drug case, are not back. So this is the part that I want people to understand. Me being arrested in Ninth Avenue Park possessing crack cocaine and drug paraphernalia has nothing to do with me threatening Connor McSwain in Westchester 5 months earlier. It's two different incidents, two different places in time and location. They don't have nothing to do with each other. Some crimes are connected because they're a part of the same event, right? Like you could rob somebody here, rob somebody there, rob somebody in the morning time, and they're all a part of you doing the same event with your intention just to rob with multiple people until you get caught. So the DA can connect these things, right? They can connect these events and make it one event. But me threatening Connor McSwain and taking $45 from him in the middle of the night in Westchester has nothing to do with me possessing crack cocaine and drug paraphernalia in 9th Avenue Park, Coatesville, about 5 months later. It has nothing to do with each other. It was not even 5 months later. It was, I guess, a few weeks later, actually. This incident I'm talking about now happened 5 months later in the courthouse. So when he says, I got the matter continued, it's important to know this. The docket is combined. So I caught a robbery case in May, and I caught a possession case in late July or August. And on the criminal docket, they're the same matter. So when I go to court, both of them are being discussed in the same matter. Like the DA, the legal system allows that to happen, right? Which highlights the manipulative nature of it. How can both of these things be on the same docket number? They're not the same, right? So anyway, when he says, I got the matter continued due to the lab results of the drugs that were found not being back. First of all, the incident goes back to why would my lawyer agree to a continuance when the Commonwealth is not ready? He should be saying, we want a dismissal. It's not our fault. I'm not helping you out. I'm not here to assist you in making your case against my client. I am here to act in the best interests of my client. If you're not ready, then I'm asking for a dismissal because it's just an accusation. It's not facts. This is not true until a verdict is rendered in the case. You understand what I'm saying? So just because you said it doesn't mean that it's true. I'm not here to assist you in it. My attorney should be asking for a dismissal. He shouldn't say, I asked for a continuance because the lab results are not back. Now, that continuance, be that as it may, for the lab results should not have affected the criminal action 2122-18 because they're two different incidents. So how can he ask for a blanket continuance for everything because one particular thing the Commonwealth is not ready for? The Commonwealth, you never even asked if the Commonwealth was ready to proceed with the robbery case. And this is what it's really about when you're dealing with experiences is, and if you're ignorant to the practicing of lawyering, right? Of contracts and contract negotiations and debtor versus creditor and all of these things. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole to try to, because mind you, this is how it's set up. This even this conversation I'm having with you right now is going to be considered anti-government. That's how they're going to spin it, because it's me talking directly to you about the government, right? But I'm not here bashing. I'm not saying anything bad about the government. It's really like a twist here in America where if you say anything that's factual about the government or law enforcement, even though it might be a bad policy or practice, the media, people are going to spin it like you are anti-law enforcement or you're anti-government, which is not true. I'm allowed to highlight the nonsense that you do. It's not my fault that you got a particular bad practice or behavior. That's on you. You need to own up to it and say, yes, we got bad practice in the behavior. That doesn't mean the whole entirety of law enforcement is bad. That'd be asinine for me to say that the entirety of law enforcement is bad or the entirety of government is bad. That's not true. You need laws. You need parameters. You need things like that so society can move forward. So that's not what this is about when I'm having this conversation. I'm having this conversation to say it is an experience that not everybody is privy to understand what they are going through. As a taxpayer, you will be put through the same paces that I went through. You just will be eased through it a little better. It will be more digestible to you. Your lawyer will help you through it better. It will seem like, you weren't dirtied up at all from your particular minute involvement with any type of legal jeopardy. You understand what I'm saying? So just think about that. Just in that way. My lawyer came out of the courtroom. I've seen him, and he said, I have to be here. I'm like, I don't have to be here because you represent me. That's why you were hired, to represent me in the courtroom. So I don't have to physically be here. And in the book, I highlight President Trump. I highlight the incident with him being impeached. People want to separate it. People want to act like that's not the same. It is the same exact thing because he was charged with crimes. They're not defined. High crimes and misdemeanors is not defined, but that term means you did something criminally wrong. It's not civil. That's not civil. Even though the Senate and all that, they tell you that it was a civil procedure, right? But still, there's an injured party. There is an injured party involved, and it was the United States of America who claimed to be injured by Donald Trump's actions. It's the same exact thing. It's just, think about it this way. When Donald Trump was impeached and he had to go to trial in the Senate, he, the physical person, Donald Trump, never, ever was arrested. He never had to make bail. He never was questioned. He never was detained. He never showed up to one hearing pertaining to his impeachment. His lawyer did, though. There was somebody representing the defendant, the person charged in the action. He showed up to two of them. I'm pretty sure you're aware that Donald Trump got impeached twice. And somebody representing him showed up twice. He was never compelled to show up. He, the person, the actual person, Donald Trump, continued to execute the office of the presidency while the defendant, Donald Trump, was on trial in the Senate. I can't make that no clearer than what I just said. And you can try to separate and act like it's not the same thing, but there's one criminal justice system in America. There is the civil side and the criminal side. It's the same system, though. Somebody is being accused, right? There is somebody who was accused, and there is an accuser. It's an adversarial system, period. So I'm saying this so you can understand. This is the nature of why I'm writing this book. Is because somebody asked me, what's the title of the book? What's going to be the title of the book? I said, When Being Stubborn Gives You an Education. I don't know if that's going to be the title, but that's exactly what happened to me. I was being stubborn. I was being abrasive and obnoxious with the criminal justice system, and it taught me a lesson. The person who you see talking to you right now is the product of being stubborn in the courtroom. Being abrasive to lawyers and stuff like that because I refused to go along with the program. And it molded me and chiseled me and took away my ignorance. The experience gave me an education. And that's what this particular endeavor is about.